here with Carter Williams and Dr. Adam Carewe, and it's another exciting week on Food is Health. Lots going on. So we built
chronic disease with food.
Yeah. So the reason we do this show, exactly like you said, is we built food around one idea, which was redesign. We want to redesign the system so that it becomes hard to make a bad decision at the grocery store. And so every week we bring conversations, frameworks, and examples of what that would look like. So should we dive in, Carter?
Yeah, let's dive in.
Right. So I'm pretty pumped about Adam coming on today. He's already here, obviously. So we're going to talk about Adam in the third person.
About him while he's sitting there off to the
Exactly. And he can't talk yet. There. That's what I was doing last week, apparently. Apparently I was doing this. So Carter told me before, could you stay in the screen, please? I wore my hat. See, this is my homage to Colorado because this shows I'm hardcore Colorado, the fact that I've done the Grand Traverse. But I guess I could lead to that with the VO2 Max thread when we go there. But so Carter, you know how deep I've gone with Claude on healthcare. And what I am really interested in our conversation today is a lot of different things. When we talked with Adam last year, we did a recording. We never released it. We won't give the reasoning why, but we never released it.
It had nothing to do with Adam. It had to do with something with the other person on the call.
Yes, exactly. So we did not release it. However, we recorded that episode and you brought up an interesting thing because you are now Adam is now practicing again and he is doing virtual care delivery. And he shared with us, Carter, that people come to him with all of these function health tests and Prenuvo and all these different tests, and then they don't know what to do with it. They sort of get spit back out of the system. They've stepped out of the system. They've gone and gathered information about themselves, and then they don't really know what to do with it. And I want to kind of add the dimension, which is now that Claude has gotten so good on healthcare, which I've been diving into hardcore since January, and it's evolving along with me learning it. I've got to believe that there's another dimension to this because I did it with myself with a virtual primary care visit recently where I thought I had figured all my stuff out with Claude, and all I wanted was a primary care to sort of do what I thought I needed to do. So it's like a whole new world for care delivery. So Carter, that's kind of like, I don't feel like I really need a doctor so much anymore, which I know is dangerous. But that's the reality of where I am.
Well, we're changing the flow. We spent 100 years defining this flow where you had to go to that. You didn't have access to the information. You had to go to the doctor. Doctor had to assume the information and do a lot of the function that Claude's doing, and then help. And we're going through creative destruction. It's time to change, and so the whole process is going to change. And I do think that what we've seen so far in people that we've talked to is using Claude improves agency. So it helps the patient be a better patient. And it'll be interesting to hear what Adam today has to say about what it does to poor doctors. But, the doctor business has been a one-on-one human-based business for a long time, which is what we used to do in agriculture. Every stalk of corn was grown by a single human. And it changed over time. So I think we're in that period of scale where it's not anything against doctors. It's going to just change how it's done. And it's exciting.
Well, and I'll just add, we posted the article that we put up on the Substack this morning was it gets back to creative destruction around Elon Musk's company building principles. And I think I'll quickly hit on them, but I think for everybody in this conversation, when we talk about creative destruction and we talk about innovation, healthcare they haven't innovated since back in the early part of the century in terms of the system itself.
Yeah, the care delivery system is
right.
Sort of been in a particular mode for a while.
Yeah. I mean, my husband just spent the day dealing with hospice for his mom. And if you knew, I mean, it was a complete meltdown in the system. And I mean, everybody has a story like that, and it generally is on a daily basis. So, all right, Elon Musk's company building principles. There are 11 of them. And he wrote this, A16Z published it. He wrote it as the CEO of SpaceX. So, one, apply the algorithm constantly. Two, the only rules are the ones dictated by the law of physics. Everything else is a recommendation. Three, compare the cost of a finished product to the cost of its raw materials, the idiot index. So much to say there. If a timeline, four, if a timeline is long, it's wrong. Five, hire for attitude. Skills can't be taught. Six, the leader should be on the front lines. Seven, camaraderie is dangerous. It makes it hard for people to challenge each other's work. And this is, I mean, I was on a call with a venture capital person today who was super frustrated with, having these conversations with other capital companies and not even interested in talking about true innovation because they already have their thesis. They already have their approach. Don't fear losing. It hurts the first 50 times, but then you'll be able to play with less emotion and take more risks. 9, design and production should never be separated. Keep everything together and feedback immediate. 10, stay heads down, focused on doing useful things for civilization. That is my mantra. Like, I think that I need to just put this on I feel this way every day. I always say I'm just heads down on trying to make it hard to make a bad decision at the grocery store and creating the system for that to happen. But I just love that statement. Stay heads down, focused on doing useful things for civilization. And then 10, the mission comes first. Very much aligned. Keep the entire company committed to a common goal. So again, we are staying true to that. So what do you want to add, Carter? It was a really great piece.
So on the idiot index, it is cheaper to fly to China to get an MRI. It is to get one in the United States. You can fly to China in business class, stay in a 5-star hotel, and get an MRI for less money, less cost than an MRI in the United States.
So, okay.
I'm not going to China, but I just, in case anybody does.
I like China. I like going there.
Okay. But that's the idiot index of the week. Okay.
So as we transition into kind of last piece of this before we bring in Adam into the conversation, you're being so patient, Adam. Thank you. So we are starting, this is our second week of this, that we're going to name one thing that's still unresolved from the week before. And last week, we established that VO2 max is the metric that matters most. It's one of the metrics that matters most, but yet almost no one is measuring it. And I showed this in our episode last week, the picture of me getting a VO2 max test and what one has to go through currently to get it. It looks like a torture chamber, running on a treadmill, breathing through a plastic tube with a face mask on while trying to measure your max stuff, right? And no one's really measuring it. And so Brooks, who was our guest last week, has a company that now is trying to make that scalable, make that not getting on a treadmill with a face thing, but actually through blood. So my question this week is, even if you know the right metrics, why can't the system act on? And I feel like that's going to be a great place for the conversation with Adam. Even the sort of the whole blow up, I'll tee up. The other thing I want to make sure we cover is, Mark Cuban went fairly viral with this whole health insurance thing, which Carter and I have been talking about for the better part of a year, along with a number of others like Stacey Mays.
Yep.
And Adam, you were great because you really shut it down and were like, yeah, this still doesn't work, which I very much appreciated. Again, I'm like talking to you, but I'm not talking to you. So, yeah. So Carter, you want to add anything to that? And then I'll just make sure we kind of do a quick system ABC. And unless you want to do that, because you've been on a roll with it today, although I'm happy to cover it, whatever you want to do.
Well, I'm sorry, you want to cover system ABC again?
Well, we always do a quick, because we've got a lot of folks that know us and a lot of folks that don't know us. And so we will inevitably talk about it, and we need to make sure everyone's on the same page.
One thing I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole last night on was this RP1 approval or non-approval for cancer treatment, and a number that popped up there is that 1 in 5 of the approved cancer drugs. So one of the people get annoyed at FDA at times for approving or not approving. But after in 62, we changed the law. It basically said up until that point, FDA basically approved things to make sure they didn't kill you. They changed the law that FDA had to verify that it actually had a benefit. So it was effective. So FDA's got to authorize a drug, they have to demonstrate that it's effective. That's the law. And anyway, so it was a cancer trial that it was unclear that it was effective. And there's a whole bunch of emotion around that. But nobody said, well, should the FDA actually be in the business of verifying whether something's effective? And the reasons why they should, and the reasons why they maybe shouldn't. But the most notable thing in looking at that is 1 out of 5 drugs that are approved for cancer from the FDA, once they are actually applied at scale, are effective. 1 out of 5. So they go through years of trials to prove that they're effective. They finally approve the drug, and 4 of the 5 drugs that they approve are actually not effective and are ultimately pulled off the market for lack of being effective.
Well, I told you there's this statistic. I mean, I listened to this great podcast about about basically like the fact that 94% of human genetics are not linked into pharma. Like that we only cover all the pharma, and everything that we do only addresses about 5 to 7% of issues. Like human genetics, like it's crazy. Like it's nuts how we're doing this.
But we had people on the Hill yelling and screaming at each other on some testimony this week around how could you kill all these people who have cancer? And nobody bothered to say, maybe we could get these drugs out, these ineffective drugs out 5 years earlier.
Yeah.
Safe but ineffective drugs. And then maybe through synthetic control arms and longitudinal data sets, we can prove their effectiveness at scale in the marketplace quicker. And then we can sort out what is or is not effective, make sure it's safe, but then sort out in 3 years what's ineffective or not effective instead of 15 years.
Totally.
And then learn through that process and speed up the cycle. And so that's another point that frustrated. But back to our mantra. We do have a mantra that we will use on this lot. And if you're new to the show, it is system A, B, and C. And we're working on our storyline here. But basically, the world of system A, B, and C is for 350,000 years, evolution and humans got along to try to make sure that we kept the human species alive. Evolution and humans optimized themselves to the available food system and kept ourselves alive at least long enough to procreate and keep humanity alive in some particular way. And our bodies are designed on a first principle basis to operate in that food system. And then at the early 1900s, we said, it's not great that people die of viruses. It's not great that people die of cancer. Evolution never tried to get people to live to 90 per se. And it's not great that we get into wars and use famine as a tool of weaponry. And so we set on the twin mission of let's conquer famine and let's figure out how to deal with acute disease. And so we built the modern medical system. It's fantastic. Humans have done a great job at sort of accelerating that and getting rid of viruses and get rid of bacteria and dealing with those things. But in that process, and getting lots of corn produced, but in that system B, how did humans optimize to really boost and change the system? The problem is we focused on calories, not nutrition. So we got diabetes, and we built healthcare systems that can only do so much acute disease. And so when chronic disease started to grow, it took over that job and never really asked the question, should we prevent chronic disease? It just got into the monetization of chronic disease. That is system B. What we're after here, back to the Elon Musk point, is what we call system C. And that is physics is here. Our bodies operate in a particular way depending on our genetics and our bodies. We operate in a particular way around food. And that optimizes to send us the signals in our body to operate. And when that goes askew, we get chronic disease and we show up at Adam's doorstep. And we're trying to figure out how to stop that. And we're doing that not by taking system B and moving it forward, we're doing that by going back to the core physics of the body and understanding how it operates and try to build new business models that, or in system A, it optimized for the survival of the species. In system C, we're really trying to optimize for individual longevity, and really have evolution and humans sort of coexist in a more effective way. But
all right, so nice work. You did it. Okay, so we're gonna get to Adam now. Finally, thank you, Adam, for your patience.
It's only been 15 minutes. He's probably got to have another cracker.
We did it. We've actually stayed true to our, like, I'm very proud of us right now, because I think we've actually like done what we're supposed to do for the first part of the show. This is our second week with this format. So, okay. Adam and I connected through LinkedIn back whenever LinkedIn was, I'm going to call it the good old days of LinkedIn, right? Because I feel like it's not its thing anymore. It's like, I don't even really spend a lot of time on there. Substack is where we're at now, because it's a bummer. But basically, Adam has been writing just prolifically and amazingly from a clinical perspective, around innovation, around AI, around the reality of the emergence of System C, the need for the healthcare delivery system to evolve. He spent many years at a very traditional healthcare delivery system. He's been part of startups. He's had successful exits. He is involved with other startups now. He's practicing again for one of the companies that he's involved in as a founder. And he's double board certified in family medicine and clinical informatics, which is a pretty amazing combo. He co-founded NerdMDs, and you're almost done with a book. So pretty much I feel like I should just like leave now. But I really like you, and we share the Colorado connection, which is why I wore my hat. I'm just, and I wish I was sitting with you in Colorado right now. One of these days I'm going to do that. I'm going to come in and we're going to record together. But yeah, so welcome, Adam.
That would be fun. No, thank you guys for having me. It was super fun to listen to your guys banter for 15 minutes, and I wanted to interject like 17 times.
Well, go for it. It's time.
I'm gonna let you. I gotta remember to do that. But
no, it's cool. No, it's so funny because all the stuff you guys were talking about, I was just like, here, my stream of thoughts. You mentioned VO2 max and all of that. So most people don't know my background before medicine was in the exercise and nutritional sciences. I started down that whole path in college.
Really?
I started as a math major, but then that quickly pivoted to kinesiology because I took an intro course, like probably it might have been my freshman year actually of college. And I was like, oh man, this like human side of like performance and health like seemed super interesting. And I played basketball in college. So I was like, man, what would be cooler than like studying something that I can actually get some personal benefit from, while I'm in college. And so, yeah, I mean, that was like, so my whole background was always in exercise. And I did personal training, I did corporate health. And then I settled into cardiac rehab after college. And then that's when I got the spark to go into medicine. So yeah, I guess that's one of the little thing that is not necessarily a part of my LinkedIn profile. I think way at the very bottom, I put down there that I was an exercise physiologist at Sharp Healthcare in San Diego, because that was my first job. But yeah, no, I mean, it's just everything you guys were saying is spot on. And like, I think I think I've like, and you mentioned I was at a large health system in a traditional way, and I ultimately was the chief medical information officer there. And it was like, I constantly was battling people like with resistance, like just internally, like physicians were resistant to a new button or like a new piece of technology that we knew was going to really help care delivery. And so honestly, that's probably why I write what I do today. Cause I just want to get ahead of like where we are right now and like at least paint it somewhat of a picture of what I think it's going to look like. And I think people should get on board with that because we need more people on the front end of these things like you guys that are talking about it. And so that's the whole reason why I do.
And as you started to write and be more public about this, what have you learned?
I've learned there's a lot of haters out there. Probably number one. But I think also just that I've been real surprised about, like everything you write, you think like nobody's reading it. And then like, you put something out and you get like one little heart and you're like, okay, well, at least one person like this. But then I go and actually talk to someone. Like last week I was out in San Francisco and got to do a little panel that was like co-hosted by my employer, General Medicine and Scrub Capital. And like, it was a small group, like about 45-ish physicians were there. And
so that's Chrissy Farr, right?
Yeah, it's the group that Chrissy's a part of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but it was like people were coming up to me and they're just like, oh, I've been like following you forever. And I'm like, I don't even know your name. Like you've never like commented on anything. Like, but it makes you just realize that there's that, only 10% of the people that read your stuff are going to interact. There's like that 80% bubble that are just readers and they interact, they like it. And so I don't know, I guess that's probably the biggest thing I've learned is that there is like, I don't know, I guess I have much more of a larger audience than I thought per se. And then, yeah, I guess, I don't know, those are the two. And then I think, yeah, it brings out like the angries too, which is fine.
When you write, does it make you better at understanding the problem?
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's my way of like getting out like the thoughts that are in my head. And like, I think, Ellen, you were talking about how Claude has helped you so much, like in just thinking about these systems and your own health and everything. It's like, I use it too as like my thinking partner and like so I can like vomit a bunch of stuff and then it can kind of like help make it sound more coherent and then I can iterate. So it's,
and you're on Substack under NerdMD, right? Is that if someone
yes. Yeah. My Substack is called Ruski.com because that was a nickname given to me in college because I had a teammate, Bobby, who like wanted to give everyone a nickname so he'd remember our names. And he could not for the life of him pronounce my last name correct. He called me Carewe and Carewe and all sorts of other things. And so he's just like, oh, it's Carewe. He's like, oh, Rue, I like that. Okay, I'm going to call you Ruski from now on. And so it kind of stuck. I bought that URL back in 95 or 96.
So as we dive into AI a bit and just, I want to hear what you're seeing. I do want to talk about redesigning healthcare delivery, but what I'd like to do is use our time in two ways. Really talk about what's happening, the disruptive forces that are happening that the incumbent healthcare system is really largely ignoring. And, I did a big piece on the Access program that I think is very telling on what's happening there. I don't necessarily want to dive into the technical aspects of that for our audience. We can, but it's more this theme of healthcare thinks that they have this impenetrable moat. And I think all of us are seeing the reality that this time it's really different and AI really changes it. And I'll kind of use this as an example. We were just talking about Claude. And then I want you to dive in that as a doctor, what you're seeing, what you're thinking. And then the other thing I do want to hit on is the health insurance piece, because I think we all have a very strong point of view on that. And I think it's fun to riff about that with people that understand it to the degree that you do, particularly from being on the clinical side. So this was Claude. So I've been on a quest. My nervous system has been shot. My allostatic load has been through the roof. But I don't want to keep doing this to myself. Right. And so I worked with Claude because I had, I've had these 1:30, 3 a.m., we all know the drill. And so I had a really good night's sleep. Like I actually finally got it figured out last night. And so this is the kind of stuff that when people are like, oh, Claude this or that, it's like Google on steroids, like, because I've been using it so consistently and it has so much of my actual information. This is what I read this morning. So what this night bought you: real things, not abstract. Cognitive capacity today. You have access to strategic thinking, synthesis, pattern matching. You didn't yesterday or the day before. Use it for the highest leverage work today. Second, emotional regulation. With 2 hours and 18 minutes of REM, you'll have better stress tolerance. The overwhelm spiral from Tuesday morning is much less likely to repeat. Immune buffer. You were heading toward the edge of depletion where illness risk spikes. This one night provides a meaningful reset before travel because it knows I'm traveling. We've come up with a whole travel plan. Today's read. You slept well. You're in the thyroid absorption window. You're already done hamstring protocol. You're starting the day right. But don't overinterpret one good night. You have 3 more nights of sleep debt to pay down and 2 demanding days ahead. Today should feel better than yesterday, but don't mistake better for fully recovered. Use the cognitive capacity today while you have it. Don't burn it on low leverage work. Like that's something that, like, right, to combine your healthcare data with your, I mean, it is like next level in terms of what it can provide to humans.
I agree. I mean, I think like, yeah, that was impressive. And I think like, I think the majority of people don't understand like how to best utilize these tools at all yet.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, they're using it to say like, give me 5 restaurants in San Francisco that serve sushi or whatever. Like that's like,
Yeah.
that's like the level that I think the majority of people are using them for. And I think, yeah, that the folks that have really tapped in to figure out how to either use this professionally, which we could talk about how we've been able to build with these tools and basically make, I think, physicians and nurse practitioners like super doctors and super NPs. And then I think, yeah, like the people that have figured out how to do this professionally, or to give them an edge in something that they're not like expert in, but they want to be, or they want to like, you know, have that better knowledge. I mean, it's, yeah, I mean, these are all the things that I'm using this for. And I think
as a clinician, how have like you evolved through this process? From when did you first start doing it, and what were your concerns? How has it shifted? And then how have you seen your patients shift?
Yeah, I'd say as a clinician, like, so on the clinical side, like I was fortunate enough when I started at general medicine really early on as just like a 1099 contracted clinician. This was back in 24 when I left Kaiser. You know, we had like a HIPAA compliant version of ChatGPT. And so I asked, I was like,
Epic, or like did Epic have something like that or something? Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, no, this was literally, we just had a BAA with OpenAI. And so we could actually use like the off the shelf ChatGPT for clinical reasons. And so I just started experimenting in it. And I was like, I kept asking, I was like, are you sure I can like dump PHI in this? It's not going to go like into OpenAI's bucket. And, you know, and they were like, no, do it. And so, you know, I think I just really started testing its like powers of, if I fed this actual patient information, like, you know, intake information that we got from someone that was going to be having a visit with me, along with things that were in their medical history, and all kind of curated around, I realized the key to this is like, you have to, like, this prompt engineering is like something to not take lightly. Like it really is like the secret sauce that makes these things like super powered. Because I think the thing I noticed with it really early on is like, you know, these tools are really meant to like please you. So like Ellen, the thing you were just reading, like that was very like kind of like forward to be like, oh, you're doing great. Like this is going to help you. Like you have to know how to call up.
Ellen?
Yeah. You have to call out the bullshit.
What'd you say, Carter?
Did it propose to you? Did Claude propose to you?
No, but I mean, I'll read you what it said to me at 1:30 in the morning the other day, and it was not nice.
It was not nice.
Yeah. Well, it was not nice at all. It was like, you need to get your shizzle together, lady, because this is not sustainable.
Yeah, so keep going, Adam.
I mean, so no, I just think like the key, like, the key clinically for these tools is you have to put extremely careful guardrails around it, you know. So it's like, and you almost have to eventually, you know, layer it. So you almost have this architecture of like multiple different layers that are like checking the check, and like,
and is that by the you as a practitioner, you as a practice, you as a system has to put that in, or all the above?
Yeah, I think all of the above. I mean, if you're just dabbling with this, you have to know how to do it yourself. Like if it's your own practice, if it's at a system layer, then yeah, there has to be these kind of guardrails built in at that layer. But I think these are just things that I found like pretty quickly. And anyway, that like parlayed into like, I was like, I did this for a couple days and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like amazing. I go into these visits with like this like super kind of script almost that's like just so helpful for me. And it would allow me to understand why the patient was coming in to see me in just a matter of minutes, like as fast as I could feed it, the
Were you
output that was
using
coming.
their data to like help you with that? Like
Yeah.
how were you sort of using, like what were you doing? What data were you able to feed it, if that makes sense?
Well, so general medicine, we do a pretty significant like intake for whatever thing they're coming in for.
Okay.
It's the old school, like fill out the paper form, which the doctor probably looked at and then threw out the window, like in the olden days. Like we're actually doing those in a good way. And so we're already collecting a lot of information for someone. So I already had this information and I could read through it and, do a visit that way. But I just wanted to architect that data that the patient provided and put it in a structure that's really easy for me to digest. And then more importantly, start giving me decision support nudges of things that I should be clarifying or asking or ultimately doing for this patient. And I was just blown away, like how good, like, I don't even know what version of ChatGPT this was that we were using back then, but it's probably one of the versions that's like retired already. And it was like really, really good. And I mean, so classic thing, I showed the two other physicians, I was like, hey guys, let me show you this. I think there's something here. And I showed it to them and they were like, yeah, we need to have all of our providers using this. This is like a life hack for like a doctor. Well, fast forward, obviously, finally, like the rest of our company saw it, the CEO saw it, and he's like, we should just build this. And like, we'll feed all this information in. So the same way, I'm sure, Ellen, you're feeding all your data in, like architecturally, that's what we're doing. And this obviously isn't like a pitch for general medicine, but like, honestly, what we're building there is like very, very cool from like a clinical side
it's
and
amazing
ultimately
for
a
patient
consumer
because
side.
it's
Yeah.
amazing for a patient. I mean, I had a primary care visit with one of your competitors recently, and I was super disappointed because I took the time to fill out the information and I used Claude to give me the summary information to feed into that doctor, right? Because I was like, I don't need to fill all this out. Like I already have it in here. I could just get the summary. It was very clunky. It was very insufficient in terms of like this many characters and whatever.
Yeah.
And I put it in and then I got on the call and you know what the doctor said to me?
What brought you in today?
Right. And I haven't had time to look at your information. So just tell me what's going on. And then follows that up with, she was late. She was almost 10 minutes late to the appointment. She said, and we only have about 20 minutes. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's a horrible patient experience.
On your part, Alan. So what did you learn? How did it impact your treatment outcomes? Did you catch something you didn't expect to catch? Where did it manifest?
Oh yeah. Yes, and yes. I mean, I'll tell you, when I first started building these, like for us to use and continue to build, I did not trust it, which I think most people should not trust a lot of these things too. Like you shouldn't just blindly trust what this thing spits out at you. And so I used to check almost every bit of advice that these things were outputting. And I would use, sources like open evidence and other clinical things that I knew at least had a little bit of this better guardrailing. But I'd say the crazy stuff that's come about, I'll share, Carter, you shared that story about you can go to China and get an MRI for cheaper than it cost here, including the flight and hotel. So this is a true story. And I'll keep all the PHI separate or private, but I had a visit just recently, a couple weeks ago, and it was a guy who went to the Philippines to get a comprehensive, like executive kind of check. I mean, it was everything. I mean, it was like full abdominal, like ultrasound. It was like obviously all the labs. It was an EKG, a stress test, a VO2 test, all sorts of poop tests, all sorts of urine tests. It was just like the guy came anyway. Long story short, he booked with us because one of his imaging studies showed that there were kidney stones, like just in his kidney. And he was very concerned about that. And so, I get on with him and we're like talking about that. And right away, I already knew, because our tool was telling me like these kidney stones are irrelevant. Like they're not important. Like, and it was kind of telling me that in a clinical way. But, I like listened to him and he was very worried about it. And he thought that's why he had low back pain. And well, I just told him, I was like, you got all this data. I was like, how come you didn't upload all of it? Because if you would have uploaded all of it, our tool would have digested it just like the way Claude does.
Yeah.
But in a clinical, better way for me. And he goes, oh, I can get it. He's like, I have all the stuff. He's like yelling at his wife. And she's like, yeah, we can upload it. And so I just said, after this visit, I mean, long story short, the guy had like anxiety. He was drinking too much. He thought alcohol was appropriate because it was legal. He probably needed to use like CBD or THC to help him more with his anxiety and or his sleep issues. But like, so I helped him with that. But then I just told him after the visit, I said, hey, just upload all your stuff and I will capture it. And before I send you your care plan, I'll make sure I review everything. Well, I just told you he was a drinker for a long time. I didn't tell you his age, but he was like, late middle-aged man, kind of getting into that riskier category. And so then when I ran everything, I didn't look at everything he uploaded because it was frankly like 21 different PDFs and screenshots. But I just let our tool like kind of aggregate it all for me. And it found that he actually had a stool test that was positive for like blood, essentially, in his stool. He didn't think that was important. He didn't tell me. Literally, our AI tool like caught it for me.
Yeah.
And I signaled to him. I was like, dude, I wrote him and I was like, hey, I just reviewed stuff. A positive stool test with your age and your drinking history. This could just be a hemorrhoid or it could be colon cancer. And he's like, oh. And so, that's like a case like where this AI honestly like caught it. And it like was obviously because of, I think, a little bit of our system and my persistence and telling him to upload everything. But, I think that's like a poster child example of how these tools can be amazing for both the consumer and for the clinician.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Well, I was just going to say, and you may be saying something similar, Carter, but like just having spent 34 years in healthcare and like most of my network on LinkedIn in professional ways is very much, incumbent healthcare. And I'm amazed at the debate around AI and healthcare, like that somehow AI isn't part of healthcare, clinical delivery, like that it shouldn't be, it's not going to be, we can somehow keep it out.
So let me insert two examples here. So when I was in aerospace, we used to use wireframe CAD systems and not fully surfaced, and then we moved to fully surfaced. So it was 92, 93. And I could see wireframes in C3D, but the generation of engineers that came after me couldn't look at wireframe and see 3D. Like your brain just gets programmed in a particular way. And I could look at stuff and like instantaneously say, that's not gonna fit in that envelope for that area. Like, and they'd be like, how do you know that? It's like, it didn't show up on the model that way. So Pronovo is getting sued for overlooking a potential aneurysm. It turned into an aneurysm. They did a MRI, or anyway, it was in the image.
Yep.
It was missed. And they didn't say this, but normally when you do an MRI, it says, this is what we're looking for. Like, I'm a doctor, I'm ordering an MRI because, I'm worried about this thing, please check. And the incidental kind of thing is incidental. It's like, radiologist reads it for the primary purpose, gives an answer for the primary purpose, and says, oh yeah, by the way, you have a stone, or you have this, or whatever. All of a sudden, when you say, oh, no, we're going to like do full factorial investigation, like you weren't trained that way. Exactly.
No, I think,
what does it do to your brain? And what is it? One, how do you not get the CAD tool thing? Like, oh, I got these new tools, so I've lost my diagnostic skills. Yeah. Or two, like, how do you and the AI cooperate so 1 + 1 = 3 instead of,
Yeah.
you know, you're 0.75 and it's now 1.25.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to unpack there actually. So like, I mean, let's just take that like Pronuvo example. I mean, and I'll just say, number one, I think like what Pronuvo is like pushing for and like others, you know, in that space, I think it's the right thing to do for us. I think what's the challenge right now is, like you said, there's a whole like probability set around like ordering a test, and like there's this pre-test probability, and I mean, we don't have to go into like what all that means and stuff, but I mean, I think like in general, for just like people to understand, you know, the higher the pre-test probability, the better that like positive test or the
Yeah.
positive finding is actually a true positive, right? So it's like, and I think, yeah, the problem is when you're like shotgunning labs, which is what we call it in medicine. Like that's like what, you know, function health and I mean, frankly, even we do it general medicine. People want labs. Yeah. Like you can go on there and you can order whatever you want. The problem with that is it's like all this crazy amount of data. And I think an image is like even more profound because yes, I mean, a radiologist is a human, right? They're trained to be like taking all this information, primarily the history that was given to them for what
Yeah.
they're trying to like tease out. And I mean, a radiologist read is infinitely better if the input is infinitely better, which usually is coming from the ordering clinician. And so I think the challenge with like what happened in this case, potentially like with Pronuvo, was, you know, it's like in hindsight, I think probably this aneurysm was noticeable. In like the real time, it probably wasn't, because you know, in these scans too, they're compromising something. They're not the perfect MRI for every single tissue in your body. So they're trying to make them like generalizable. And I think that's where the technology has to get better. So
And so how do you make that closed loop?
Wait. I just want to go back to that for a second before we do this.
Sure.
We are friendly with Pronuvo, so I want to like disclose that.
Well, no, but so I go back to this, which is, so we didn't catch the aneurysm. But before Pronuvo came along, right, there was no option for the full body scan. There was no catch of all of the things that have been caught. And yes, I know there's all sorts of false positives. You know, people complain about that. But I would argue that if you did an analysis, like my hypothesis, if I were to do a study on this, would be that the number of things caught early far outweigh the things that were missed or the things that were false positives in terms of the savings to the healthcare delivery system. That those would have turned into stage 4 cancer or whatever, right? Unchecked, or that, yes, you ended up going to a doctor and having that doctor talk to you and maybe even doing a follow-up scan only to find out it was a false positive.
Yeah. So in a system C world, I think the way we should think about this is, sorry, maybe you can find the picture of it, but if you look at the Raptor version 1, 2, 3 engines and SpaceX, the difference between 1, 2, and 3 is dramatic. If you just look at the design, like it's Jesus, you streamlined it, and I can say as an engineer, I've been through that where you design it this way. We could do this and we can do that, and that's a little bit of what does on his idiot index is if the cost of the product is greatly larger than the cost of the bill of materials going into it. And if you run that loop, this leads back to the feedback loop. Like, okay, we can understand in the after action review what went wrong here. Now, how do we feed that back in? And then how do we make it so that you don't have to have a critical failure? Like, how do you train? I don't know if you're doing this in the code that you're doing, but how do you train? Yeah, there it is. Like, I've been through that in engineering, and like, how do you do that? How do you do that? So it like you learn quickly enough, and
how
do you do unit testing of healthcare?
No, it is. I mean, it's like you have to like, again, if you take this like medical imaging piece, and just so everyone knows, like I'm about to have a Pronuvo scan. I've actually invested in like one of their competitors because I think this space is like ripe for the future, and I think it will be the future. So I'm super bullish on that. But I think I think I think the problem with healthcare is like we have to have these. If a test is meant as a screening test, which you could argue, obviously these scans are because people are coming in with no symptoms. To be a really good screening test, they have to be extremely sensitive, but they also have to be very specific. And there's not many tests that exist in the
Yeah.
world that fit that bill. And that's, I think, but again, like to your point, Carter, like from an engineering standpoint, from a software engineering standpoint, from a technology and AI standpoint, I think you can start to make that a reality where it is going to be more and more sensitive and more specific. Because then you ultimately do start cutting out both the false positives and the false negatives.
Well, and so this is a conversation we had with Dr. Joe today. Dr. Joe's really one of the early people in toxins, and we say, and we say this in part because of a conversation I had with Dr. Joe like 2 years ago. We say when you go to the grocery store, it should be hard to make a bad decision. Now he took that to another level. So we have processed tomatoes to the point that there are really only 40 essential nutrients in a tomato. We sort of gave up on everything else, and we process that to scale it so that we've got a clean supply chain in tomatoes. And he said, but we took out a bunch of things in those tomatoes that help you process arsenic that used to be in the tomatoes. We didn't do it because we knew that, but it just sort of happened through the breeding and blah, blah, blah. And so when we think about to make it so that it's easy to make hard to make a bad decision in the grocery store, that means you need to do a lot of engineering so it looks like the Raptor 3. It's like you got to say, and the other point he made is, I was like, well, why is it N of 1? And he said, well, we're N of 1 in the United States because we have every single genetic crowd that's shown up in this place, which really makes US unique for N of 1. But two, some people process things differently because of those genetics, because of the natural, that's what evolution sort of programmed to do but what it means from a product standpoint is if Joe wants to get rid of arsenic because arsenic is the underlying diagnostic cause for a bunch of other problems, we've got to engineer the food system so that you're going in to buy a tomato and you don't know it has this innate capability to also help you process arsenic. You don't care. But we as engineers or designers of the system do care enough that we took that, we made it so that the defect doesn't get created. And like in aerospace, when we designed aircraft, we thought about the fact that the door might fly off when you're flying. And that plane didn't crash because somebody did in 1967 think about the fact that it might come off. And so what am I saying there? Do you feel yourself getting drawn in that direction? Or are you like, who's going to do that? Who's going to are all these doctors that were practitioners that get displaced from Claude then going to figure out and move over to do the system design? Or where do you feel the tension pulling you at this point? What would you want to do next?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So obviously I'm having like the time of my life in my current situation. So I plan to ride this, but I think I guess like if there's something that I would go after is like a concept that I've had for a very long time thinking about, and I didn't have a solution for it. And I think there is a solution for it, but I'll talk about it. So I think ultimately, like, I think when we get to this full like system C, like we're going to be so far ahead of like prevention, like we're going to eventually like cut down the need, for downstream stuff.
Well,
I mean, I've posted about like that. I think hospitals will go away, et cetera, et cetera. But I think like right now, like as we're working towards that reality, the other thing that we can do right now with our current state is I think we can help prevent the consumer demand for the needs for healthcare, like in the traditional sense.
Go on.
And so what I mean by that is like, like right now, someone has a concern, they either ask like a physician or a nurse that they know, they like go on the internet and Google it, or they use AI, right? Or they make a traditional visit. I would argue we need a better platform where people could get that answer in like a very holistic, accurate, shooting down the misinformation in a way that they could get their concern addressed without having to even enter into the traditional system. So that's where I think so I'm thinking much more upstream where.
Yeah, so the analogy a little bit of what we say about the grocery store is you shouldn't have to pull up an app. You shouldn't have to, it should be feel intuitive.
Correct. Yeah. Like when you walk into a grocery store, yeah, I mean, you brought up like right now you walk in, you see the bookends and they're like chips and soda and whatever, right? Like the end of the aisles. When like, I mean, if grocery stores really wanted to start pushing this, like the goods, the nutritious stuff should be right there. But like, yeah, yes, it should be really easy to like they should put the really bad stuff like really hard and like kind of hidden like between the, between the breads or something. That's where like, all the junk food would be. But like the junk food is like in the aisles when you're checking out, and like it's literally like just teasing you to like grab it.
Yeah, I mean, they spend a lot of money. Sometimes I think you may know this data because we use it. If you're a Albertsons customer and you shop in store and then you switch to the digital app and start buying online, you immediately index 8% more towards whole food.
Yeah.
So people say it's hard to change people's behavior, right? I would argue that the behavior that's being changed is processed food is spending $15 billion and sticking that thing in front of you to change your behavior. They're the ones changing your behavior.
Correct. Yeah. And this actually just sparked another thing. This is not a segue, but it's related. Like there's this whole argument that like some of these new tools that they're offering free to doctors, like I'll say open evidence, that they're going to surface ads. And I've seen countless posts online of doctors going, oh, I don't even look at those ads. I'm not influenced by the drug company ads that are surfaced on open evidence. I'm just there to find out the information I need. And I like call out bullshit on that. I'm like, no, like you literally, I mean, that's why advertising works. Like we don't have billboards and commercials, and people don't pay millions of dollars to show 30 seconds at the Super Bowl because it doesn't work. It works. And even if you think it doesn't work, it's actually working probably more on you.
It's working perfectly.
Yeah, perfectly. It's completely perfectly.
But I also I also think some of this just comes back to information and knowledge too, which we've talked a lot about in System C. And that's why the AI piece is just, to me, so pivotal in all of this. Is like,
correct.
You could put broccoli on all the end caps right now. But then it's not going to change it. Maybe
well, no, but here's the broccoli.
Here.
Here's the broccoli example. There is a way in marketing to do this. So, in broccoli, a brand that had frozen broccoli, which is still nutritionally good. It preserves a lot of it. They simply marked the broccoli bag as air fryer ready.
Yes.
And they got a 10% price premium, and they got 15% or so lift in sales.
Cool example.
So the point that's getting to is the thing we talk about often is friction. Like
exactly.
if you're single mom, if you're a busy parents, single mom, whatever, that air fryer is on the easy button thing, just like the
although our air fryer is off limits to me to use for any family food that includes my son, because we cook salmon in it and that makes it smell bad. So the air fryer has been banned.
There's some off-target effects, but
there's a couple. It's real. The struggle is real. So we do have a couple of comments that I want to throw in here as we keep going. So this is one of our regular listeners, APA SAS Health, weighed in and said, I think the use of AI and impacts will vary based on incorporation within the org side org size. Fresh Start AI is center. Legacy orgs augment broken models, moving the same direction.
Oh yeah.
And I would agree with that. I think that's, I mean, I still can't get over the conversation I had with a big health system, one of the biggest ones in the country. And we hadn't seen each other in a number of years, and we were catching up at HIMSS, and he was with his CIO, and he said, we were just debating about, whether AI primary care should be free. He's saying it should be free. And I looked at him, I said, it's already free. Like, I mean, I understand that it's very archaic, but like, if you want to go through the trouble, you can get it. Again, this goes back to kind of the Prenuvo point and your point, Adam, about there's a better version of, like, how general medicine has made a better version of, right? Is with primary care. Unfortunately, the norm right now is a 7-minute visit that isn't typically, well, people have actually pushed back on the back, and they've said it's actually 14 minutes. I'm like, yes, but by the time you go in and the chart is pulled up and the weight and all that, like, it is generally 7 minutes. And so again, we get caught up in healthcare, like what's right and wrong, like what it should be. We don't deliver what it should be. We deliver a bastardized version of it. And we've priced it so high that people can't even attain it. It's not worth it. We talk about all these dimensions, right? On the food side, we talked about convenience. The same thing holds on healthcare. Believe me, Claude's the only person other than my husband who wouldn't be thrilled about it, that's going to talk me off a ledge at 1:30 in the morning about the fact that it is not time to get up and work, no matter how excited my prefrontal cortex is.
Yeah.
So,
no, I agree. That comment too was like really highlighting, which I see, and I write about a lot, is like everyone's just focusing on making the current process like faster. It's like the faster horse thing. Like if you gave people a long time ago, before cars were invented, like, the option of like, hey, look, I have this new car that you're going to pour this like flammable liquid into that could blow up, but it will take you places. Would you do it? People would go, now, can you just make my horse like run a little faster? Like give him like a steroid or something? Like, I just think that is like that's what healthcare is doing right now. Like
totally.
It's like all the,
which is the normal reaction until somebody comes through with a new business.
Of course. Yes. And I think like, I mean, that's what attracted me to this vision of general medicine back before it was even called that, and got me to like leave the golden handcuffs of Kaiser that I had. But it's like, I mean, I think the holy grail of like medicine, like just in general, is like, it should be super, super convenient, right? Like it should just be frictionless for you to like access the information and the knowledge and the care that you need. But it also should feel like the way people that are lucky enough to have a concierge physician.
Absolutely.
Like those two seem like they're like completely opposed.
They're not anymore.
But I would argue I don't think they are anymore. And you can actually, I mean, that's what, when I heard the vision from our CEO at General, like he just explained that to me. And I was like, wait a minute, you're trying to make this like super convenient, but also like concierge-like. And we don't use that term, but like, I guarantee you that's what patients feel with us.
And
like, so it's like
model in that case.
I mean, the business model right now is, I mean, we actually are just making the horse faster. Like we're still accepting insurance. We're still doing the traditional transaction, but we're using technology on the back end to actually help patients move to that next step. So like, I mean, I'll give an example.
$200 a month or something? Or do they, like on the front end, what do they do?
I didn't hear what you said. What was the comment
like
before that?
$200 a month or something to have instead of, or is it more like DPC than it is?
Oh no, we have no membership. We have zero.
Oh, you have zero membership.
We have zero membership. There's no subscription. Zero. It's straight up like fee for service. But I think like the downstream part, like, I mean,
what's your value proposition?
Yeah, the value proposition is like, we can just take care of you anywhere in the country, and we can curate all those downstream options that you need based on your insurance. Like
and you use the tools for customer acquisition and customer retainment.
Correct.
So it's great tools. It makes your experience really good. So you're going to keep doing business with us, and we're going to make our money on fee for service.
exactly. That's what it is right now. I mean, there's obviously much more in the works, I think, that's in their minds, but yeah, right now that's the typical. But I think like to a patient, it's just like, it's mind blowing. Like I mean, I had a bunch of visits this morning, and like, I mean, after the visit, I can't tell you how many times a patient goes, wait, I didn't tell you what pharmacy I want my medication to. Like, how dumb is that? That as a physician, I have to know what pharmacy you want to pick this up at.
No doubt.
So like, we just flipped it, and like, I send them a care plan that has their medicines and their labs and their imaging and their referrals. They pick it. They get to pick the pharmacy. They get to pick where they want to do labs. They get to pick, frankly, what specialists we curate for them. So it's like, that's what I meant by like, it's like concierge like we're actually like navigating. So I mean, I think there's still room to, like in this case, to make the horse faster and better, but like, this is also thinking about it slightly differently, you know. And like,
Well, so how do you? And there's nothing wrong with sliding into what we sometimes call System B plus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's interesting you're changing the business model,
Yep.
and that you're, you know, removing friction. Do you think it changes? Like if you're now getting, because we talk about pre-chronic, so people that
Yeah.
like 5.2 going to 5.3 going to 5.4,
Yep.
they're going to be 5.7. It's going to
Yep.
happen. Like, but normally nobody would treat them.
Yeah, and honestly, that's like the type of stuff that I have conversation. So I'm like already trying. I mean, you guys know me. I'm like already trying to think in that System C framework. But yeah, I mean, I saw someone this morning, and I was like, "Hey, I see like you were kind of like sort of pre-diabetic," and I use that term because by definition they were not pre-diabetic. They were like right on the cusp, but they also had a BMI of 50, and they had some other things that I was like,
Like,
I just like brought it up to them, and like they were like, oh no, I don't have pre-diabetes. No one's ever told me that. And I was like, no, you don't by definition. But I was like, have you thought about like maybe taking metformin or starting like a GLP-1? Like I was like, we can talk about that. And like that visit was probably for something totally unrelated. I don't even remember what the reason was for. But I mean, I think like, so that, I mean, that's at least the way that I think. And so I'm always trying to incorporate some of that stuff. Like, so yeah, when I'm seeing someone in their 30s and they were told that their cholesterol is fine, but they're like, have this horrible family history.
so let's go even further. How would you, my wife was in the prenatal vitamins business which is,
Okay.
you really want to get the prenatal vitamin on board before conception.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife's an OBGYN, so yes.
Yeah. So the trick is like, how do you find out someone's gonna have a baby? Like,
yeah.
Like, and so that's like a harder thing to like customer capture. Like, so how do you, like, do you think you would figure out how to, would your practice change to the point that you would figure out what are the indicators that somebody's pre-chronic and they come to realize that they should come to you because?
Yeah. I mean, that's really interesting. I wonder, yeah, I mean, this is just me spitballing, but like, what if, you know, you think of like big companies like Meta and Amazon, like they're the ones that probably, or Walmart, like they're the ones that probably could predict some of this stuff like early on in some way, shape, or form.
You talked to Nielsen.
Yeah.
You talked to Sherry at Nielsen IQ at Health, and like what you can tell from purchase data is profound.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just search data, like, right. I mean, like Meta, like what people are looking for on Amazon, if they're searching for something, like it can totally infer all sorts of things. You know, like if someone's, I mean, here's a simple example. If someone's searching on Amazon for compression socks because they have like edema in their feet and ankles, like that could be a signal that they actually are obviously too late, but they could have heart failure or something, right? Like portal hypertension, like whatever. Like they could have something.
40% of people are undiagnosed diabetic, and
correct.
80% of people who have diabetes are not on the standard of care.
Yeah,
not really on the standard of care. So they're like, these aren't impressive numbers.
No, so I think there's probably tons of untapped potential into like partnerships with these retail and like search engines and whatever else that could potentially be surfacing up. True prevention, you know, like before it's not.
See, I feel like in the access program, I brought up the access program. Like, I feel like that's an example of where you could get super creative, because there is an early chronic, like pre-diabetes is covered for access. Like, there are meaningful dollars there for, for that whole piece. So do we want to
goes back a little bit to your longevity thing, Ellen, in terms of, do you say you're pre-diabetic, or do you say, when you're 80,
yes,
you're not going to be as happy if you don't do something about this now?
Well, so I mean, I guess that's actually a really good frame. That's a really good frame.
And I do, all this.
I do want to make sure we save a little bit of time for health insurance too, but let's use that frame. So we've been talking about, AI and even general medicine. I would put you in the system B+ bucket. So if we really think about system C, right, to Carter's point, so one option, like we talked about, is the end caps of the grocery store start to fill with broccoli, right? Like that's one option, and it doesn't have to be
air fryer ready.
Right, yes. Right. That's air fryer
super
ready.
Convenient.
It doesn't have to be just one option, right? It can be like it's a multitude of things that need to happen. But redoing the grocery store is one of those. But then I would argue, I mean, I wrote a future cast on this. I feel really strongly about this, which is, I think when you're a kid, that when you go to the pediatrician, you should start having a conversation with your pediatrician about what you want life to be like when you're a teenager, when you're in your 20s, when you're in your 30s, when you're 40s, and that is what standard of care should include, so that you're talking to your doctor. Because guess what? That guy that's got prediabetes, if he had told you, let's just say the standard of care was that everybody had a health span plan, right? And you looked at that health span plan and you were like, yeah, your BMI is X. So like, that's not going to work. Like, you're way off track for that. And so we need, right. And so I guess my point is, in that case, you may not even need to get to the metformin question, because it's the change in lifestyle to get you back on track to what you want to achieve down the line. Because people don't think about what they don't like. That's what we did last week was, Brooks, through the VO2 test that they have, is like, you go get your VO2 max test and you can go do it. Carter walked up a hill. I don't know, Carter, if you like got your VO2 max you did, and you plugged it in. And
I get my VO2 max because I've got power meters on my pelvis.
Right. So when you put your number into Brooks's thing from last week, you told me you did this. What did it told you what?
Well, I mean, it was better than I thought. My VO2 max is like 30, which I'm not happy about. And it's probably a little bit lower because of winter, but it did say that, like, you're going to be okay till you're 80, but like, you really need to hump it to be okay till you're 90.
But what about, but the one thing I thought was really helpful on his was it talked about, there were two categories. It was like, your lifespan is X, but your ability to exercise and move is Y.
Yeah, it broke those down, and actually you should take a look at, because this is just triggering a really interesting thought. It's like, could you include in your interaction with your patients at this point what a lifespan, health span conversation? I mean, is that the kind of thing that you think you could slipstream into the conversation and it would positively change your patient's engagement?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think, in the whole concept of lifestyle medicine, which is a recognized like specialty now too. I was actually just interviewing an applicant to join our group that.
And are they LM certified? Are they a diplomat?
Yeah.
I love I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, no, she was a family physician and she was lifestyle medicine certified. And like, her frustration was like, in her current health system, yeah, she can have those conversations when she has time, but like, she wants to do more of that, and I was like, well, I know consumers and patients want to pay for that too. Like, they want that. And honestly, doctors want to do those kinds of things. I think the problem is there's just not like a setup for being able to do that in the time that is allotted. And yeah.
How much cash is left on the table that patients are willing to pay?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a ton of people that are proactive enough that they want to pay for that type of stuff. And I think there's a whole other group that would probably be willing to if they were just explained like what it would do for them.
But I don't know if this is where Ellen wanted to go in insurance, but we have said to some degree you got to think about breaking insurance apart, meaning like rare,
100%.
infrequent, acute, that's insurance. Chronic disease, not insurance. So then you got to effectively cost manage it. But at the same time, like financial advisors, life insurance people want you to live longer. They're one of the few sets of people that really business models that want you to live longer. And so, like the notion of doctors have a moral reason why they want you to do that, probably more so than others. And like, should you be working with financial advisors in some kind of way, like, or should they be referencing them to you? Or is like is life insurance, hey, after I underwrite, because if you did it before you get in trouble, but after I underwrite you for life insurance, I want you to go see Adam.
Oh no, I've read about that concept of like it should be tightly together. Like it truly should be. Like
and now you've got a patient that is gonna have less insurance load on them, and then they become a candidate after a certain point where you can almost say, well, given your data, you actually should think about switching over to a catastrophic plan.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, the way I think about all this, like especially health insurance, is like I try to, I mean, and anyone that reads the stuff I write, I try and make like parallels that make it kind of obvious, like in other industries. And so like in this case, let's just like compare it to auto insurance. And I think, you know, like what is auto insurance? If you're a safe driver, you get rewarded for that, right? I mean, they even have those little fobby things that you can put in your car, right?
I'll go further on that. I'll go further on that, which is I always use the homeowner's insurance analogy, and I talk about the faucet, right? Which is like you go on vacation and you leave your faucet running, and your kitchen gets ruined, and then you call the insurance company, and you're like, "I'd like a new kitchen."
Sorry,
right? And they're like, "But imagine if homeowners insurance was like, oh, okay, we'll get a new kitchen. Which kind of granite do you want this time, or which kind of stone do you want?" And then you go on vacation 6 months later, and you leave it on again, and they're like, "Oh, sure, we'll get you another kitchen." Like that's not how insurance works, and that's chronic disease. Like
it completely is. No, it's a great example. No, it is.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah. So I think like, you know, and I think there's like companies that are dabbling in this, right? Like you know, companies that are giving like, you know, some sort of like, you know, an Apple Watch or a ring or something that, and then, I mean, even Kaiser, we still have that as our insurance. My wife works there. And, you know, I just got this like Kaiser rewards card, and all I have to do is like every month I have to like focus on one thing. And it's like, it's all just like the lifestyle medicine stuff, drinking less, exercising, sleeping, stress. And as long as I like log that stuff and just do it through, it's all in through the KP app. Like I have literally, I don't even know where it is. It's probably in one of these drawers. I have a credit card that they just put money on. And it's like, that's a small thing, but I think those types of, we have to align like the incentives with like the, allowing people to like make good choices and then honestly get rewarded for it. And then, yes, we have to split up this whole notion of like, yeah, we have car insurance in case we make a mistake and we total our car. We want like to
what
not
would you
be
need
in the hole.
What would do you think? What would be the Raptor 1 of a lifespan conversation with your current patients?
Interesting question. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it would be about, I mean, kind of like those core pillars, you know, of like diet, exercise, sleep, stress, mental health. I guess I'd put those 5 things probably in there. You know, that would be like the global kind of topics. And then I think, yeah, all the rest of it would be like, what other data could we get, you know, from them that could give us at least some insights into the potential.
Would they want to see like, hey, it looks like you might live to 85, but health span wise, you're really going to be in trouble in 75. So do you want to talk about that? Like after
I think
kind of survey them or something.
No, totally. If there was if there was some model that could like generate that for the patient based on their data and like how they answer questions about what they do from a lifestyle perspective, I think that would be very powerful to like, and then like, I think most people are visual. So like, I would imagine, if then we could start plugging in things and go, hey, if you do strength training, 2 to 3 times a week, starting now until you're 80, show them how that curve like flattens out and like that cliff is like at the very end, like, I mean, those types of things are super powerful.
Let them play with whatever interventions they might bias towards.
So,
and this is the kind of thing that I think needs to be moved upstream more. Like, I honestly don't think like legacy healthcare is going to do this.
No, we
like,
have to
so I think there needs to be like this like way upstream thing.
Where's it like to some degree we're dealing with 35-year-olds who aren't really under any clinical care.
Correct.
So how do we get them? How would you?
I just saw a guy today. I mean, he came in for ED medicines, but I noticed in our AI he was a smoker. He had a bunch of other things, and so I like brought these up, and obviously the ED was probably related to the smoking anyway, so there was a connection. But I like, I was like, hey, I can help you quit smoking. There's great options. Like, I can actually help you with this. I mean, that's the single most thing that a smoker could do to extend their life. Obviously, right? Like, doesn't take a doctor to tell them that. But it's like, I don't know. I think those are I think all this stuff is things that we could be doing. And you're right, that donut of like, I would say like the early 20s where you feel invincible to like maybe your mid 30s when like reality starts hitting you. I think that whole market is completely untapped in like traditional legacy healthcare right now. I mean,
that's what
maybe with the exception maybe of systems like Kaiser that have, at least systems that are like making sure those people are at least getting like the age appropriate screenings and the things that are show evidence at that age.
And that's the crowd we sort of call pre-chronic, where I think it's like they don't cross any threshold. They don't cross, they're below 5.7, but they are social determinants. They're the death star is sucking them in.
Correct. They're like on the path. I mean, what I always ask in visits if I do a video visit, obviously I can see someone's face and neck, so I can get a sense of like how big they are. I'll almost always ask someone, if it's not a part of the intake, like what's their height and weight, because I'm just like, hey, I want to capture that for your record with us, and and it's just interesting because then I'll ask them too. I'll be like, hey, do other people in your family have sleep apnea? Do other people have like, these kind of like pathway diseases of obesity? And I'll ask them too. I'll be like, what did you weigh when you were 18? What do you weigh now? Like in your late 20s? And it's like, a lot of times
you ask them their waist size.
I mean, I do sometimes. Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of things that I could ask, and it's like, but I think it's like just most people are there. They feel fine, right? If you feel fine, you don't think you have high blood pressure or, elevated glucose or glucose intolerance or whatever. I find myself, I'm ordering a lot more now, like, kind of a fasting insulin along with the fasting glucose, because then you can kind of calculate, this like score, which is a little bit more meaningful.
Are people coming in asking for that or asking for A1C?
Yeah, I mean, we have the full variety, since we're like, I mean, the
stuff I run into people who get diabetes that don't know their A1C, which is sort of just, I don't even get.
Yeah. My mom was I mean, she got admitted to the hospital with a septic kidney infection and from stones that were likely from the untreated diabetes, ended up with vascular dementia over it. And it's because when she got admitted into the hospital, her A1C was like 9. And my dad's trying to tell me that she's pre-diabetic. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not like, and he's like, well, we went to IHOP just recently. I was like, yeah, IHOP yesterday doesn't cause the A1C to be 9. I mean,
I honestly think what we should get to, and I know you guys have all tried the CGMs also, like the over-the-counter ones, and I did too for like several months. That was like more insightful to me than, even though I knew like the foods that were bad.
oh, but
It's
it's
like
so
I really found out the foods that are bad for me. And for me, it was 2 of those delicious Dots pretzels. If I just had 2 of those sticks, like my glucose would almost go over 200 with
Really?
2
And
of them.
people think health. This is why. So this gets back to why Kelly's on, I think. But Kelly Springer and I started this Tuesday morning live stream called Unprocessed and Unfiltered to talk about this very thing, which is people focus on not eating unhealthy. They don't focus on how to eat full of nutritional density and really understand how to feed and fuel their body healthily. Like pretzels, most people would say pretzels are healthy. Now, I would argue that in the last year or two, with the focus on ultra processed food, I think people realize that it's much more empty calories. But people still think it's healthier than a Dorito. And
No, because it's like baked or air baked or whatever they are. I mean, it all goes back to, I think, all of the. You can call it now misinformation, but it wasn't misinformation. It was just ill-informed. The whole notion that, just the notion that, like, if you got heart disease, you had to have 0 fat in your diet. Like that was the biggest mistake I think in our country. Was going down that route from a food industry standpoint, because it basically generated like the carb craze that is here.
Oh, totally. But and I think that's where the issue comes in is, like we don't talk about keto or Mediterranean or this or this or this, because what we think that System C creates is personalized medicine at scale, personalized nutrition at scale. Like we all talk about precision nutrition, personalized nutrition. The reality is that if we have a human-based economy, outcomes-based economy, then that is natural. Like you don't have to throw something else. And so, all right, I'm just going to read. Well, no, we only have 8 minutes left. I was going to read what Mark Cuban said. But I feel like we can,
I know we probably don't have enough time to deep dive.
Well, I'll
into
do it. But I don't think.
Why don't you do like the Cliff Notes version? We can comment on it quickly.
Yeah, he just starts it off and he says the greatest problem, and I think we all disagree in terms of, there's some pieces in here that are accurate, but we don't agree with his foundation. I will say I'm glad that he's going after the PBM side. I think he's focused on just pulling out fraud and pulling out waste and, pulling out sort of the cushion. He's not moving upstream. And that's, again, it's like a gnat on the elephant's hiney. If we don't address food, if we don't address what's making everybody chronically ill, it's a fool's errand, right? And so he just says the greatest problem in healthcare, hospitals, even market dominant hospitals won't walk away from the big insurance companies that underpay, late pay, claw back, deny claims, waste their time in denial appeals, require them to pay up to 8% of revenue to RCM consultants so they think they're getting what they're owed. And that's the whole thing where it's like, okay, great. So we can get hospitals to go direct to employers, but employees are still sick. Insurance is still not structured correctly. Like it's going to save some margin, or it's not going to, I don't think that that's creative destruction. I think that's just not even, maybe it's System B plus. I don't know.
I do wonder though what Cuban is working on, because you have to imagine like he wouldn't be writing about all this if he wasn't like cooking. He's
definitely
something.
Planning his own new health plan, but so are we. So it's okay. We'll go head to head with Cuban.
Oh, it's great.
So,
we do. We're thinking that we should create a healthcare plan.
Well, we've already sketched. We've been sketching it out. It's not just that. Yeah.
And it would distinctly shift. It would distinctly separate acute from chronic. But I think that anyway, I think it's time to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's kind of land the proverbial plane here and then do this one thing. We'll close with the do this one thing. So, I guess I walked into this really wanting to hear how you were using AI as a clinician in general medicine. I think you're one of the most forward leaning. I think what I heard is that you've seen that it is a really valuable tool. You're not scared of it, that it's something that can just get better and better. It can differentiate general medicine. And I guess my transition, I want Carter to also, I want us to all kind of equally land this together. But I think the one thing I would like to do as we try to leave everybody that joined us today that's still on with the do one thing, right? This week, what would you recommend people do? Last week we talked about test your VO2, plug it in, see what it says. So I think,
or walk up a hill.
Walk up a hill. Carter walked up a hill. He got on his. Did you get on your bike? No, you just went for a walk, because I don't think you can get on your bike yet with the snow and ice. Carter, what would you sort of do to
ask your parents their A1C?
No, I didn't. I don't want you to do the one thing.
Oh, what I did do?
No, I want you to go back to landing the plane with me. Like, what else did you walk into this episode with that sort of you're walking out with before we say do one thing?
I walk into this. Well, Adam and I'm one of the guys that like hits the heart thing on his thing, so we actually get to talk.
You are, and I appreciate that.
It does.
I restack you. I do restack you sometimes.
Yeah, no, you do too.
No, but it's I think the collaborative nature. We're both taking this problem on from two different areas, and I think that the ability for us to, the event we're running next week, we're saying we want 40 people in the room who are ballers in their area and are going to walk into the room and basically say, I don't know how to solve this part of a problem that I need to solve for me to do what I'm good at. And I was looking forward to this from that standpoint, as Adam's trying to conquer this, and I think we're all willing to admit that, like, we don't have the full equation.
Yeah, I'm just sad.
We're not so egocentric to it.
I'm sad Adam's not going to be there with us next week. Soon enough. We'll have to do an unconference out in Colorado again when Adam can come.
Yeah, I had we should do the unconference when we do the insurance unconference.
Yes. And then Adam should come and Stacy will come, and we'll do it in Denver.
We'll do it down at
that'll be cool.
We did it at the
We'll do it with the Gaylord, and we'll do it when the leaves are changing. So Mike Williams, before we do, we'll close out with do one thing after this. But Mike Williams made a good comment before that I didn't call out, which is I love this one. General rule in life: cut out the bad influences and things get better.
So true.
I do want to. I don't know if this is what you're going to do, or I'm still trying to figure out how we land this plane, how the plane operates. But I do think. Last week it was climb a hill. This week, ask your parents their A1C.
Or ask yourself your A1C.
Well, if you don't know yourself, yeah. But I think the people who watch the show I don't know either way, but ask your parents their A1C.
Okay, well.
It goes to the next level of basically saying.
Okay, that's fair.
I'd
ask them when they got it tested.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But start you're going to get a conversation. That's why you ask, because you're going to get a conversation from there, and you might get.
Well, soon they'll be able to get
worried about it. I mean, 1,000 things, but I think that's the one thing that people should do.
So I'm gonna add something and then ask Adam a question. My do one thing is everybody should get a CGM, and you can get the Stello through Amazon, so that you don't
$80
get exactly
for two of them. Yeah,
exactly. And I wear a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor. It's like you just literally go like this, and it's on your arm. It looks weird, but it does not hurt. It just clicks right on. You can do it yourself, and then the information is just fascinating. And then plug it into Claude. Like, you don't even have to do that, but that would be like the plus. But
you screen print it, screen copy it, and paste it in the Claude.
Absolutely. Yep. That's what I do every morning. I literally screenshot my Aura data and dump it into Claude. And then it talks to me about like all my stuff, because sleep is my issue, not the food. Although I do talk to it about the food as well. It's giving me that. But what would you suggest beyond that, Adam, as a doctor who's leveraging AI, who's like, what would you say, do this one thing?
Yeah, I guess in the spirit of our conversation, like, I mean, this is very analog. It's not a very AI centric thing. But I'll give two. The analog one I'd say, look at your parents, your aunts, your uncles, the people around you that are your elders, and look at like what they look like and what their just like how they are. Like,
Yep.
are they up playing baseball and pickleball, or are they like sitting on the couch, most of the time? And like,
Yep.
I think I would just observe that
Yep.
and recognize that that's your future if you don't change it for yourself. So I think that's like the observation analog thing. I'd say from an AI standpoint, yes. Like, I think if you're comfortable putting all your health record data and things into, either Anthropic or ChatGPT or whatever, I would encourage people to do that. I'd say if you're really scared about it, the tool at General Medicine is completely free to use, the AI tool. It already is connected to your health record, so you can just interact with your health record with us. And again, that's not like a sale on it, but like, it's the only one out there that's actually connected to your health record already. And as a bonus, you get like a little quick asynchronous evaluation of your interaction with
I'm
that.
gonna do that. What's
with us?
What is it? Tell me. I'm gonna put it in the chat right now. What is it called?
Yeah, it's generalmedicine.co, no M/AI. And you just have to log into your account.
Wait.
Yep.
.com.
.ai.
Go.
Okay.
Or /AI.
General medicine. Wait. Now I'm really missing.
.co, not com.
Yes.
/AI. Generalmedicine.co /AI. Okay.
Correct.
I put it in the chat for everybody. I'm gonna do
Yeah,
that.
I mean, that's when you can do it for free, and you'll get a little response from one of our lovely doctors that's reviewing it. And if you need help, I'm happy to help. I didn't say this, but I'm actually licensed in every state, including DC. So I'm like one of, I think, probably 50 physicians
I'm going to be on your schedule
in the country.
soon. So next week, so anybody that's wondering what's happening next week, and then we'll say goodbye, is we are going to do our live stream from Nashville, from Murfreesboro on the farm. Carter and I are going to do it on Wednesday. We're going to do it after our innovation lab. That's the plan. So we will be there, and we might have some like special guests. It'll be like surprise mystery guest. We may grab people.
We're going to use a portable Starlink to do it.
Oh,
nice.
That'll be so cool.
I got it right here. I got it.
Carter keeps telling me to get one of these.
Oh yeah, I'm like, I've been so on the fence of just getting one. It's so cool.
It's got a built-in battery. I should go test it.
And then Carter and I we're like on a trip together. Then we leave Nashville and go to Ryland's farm, the Sovereignty Ranch down in Bandera, about regenerative agriculture, which again, Food is Health 10 will get you 10% off that.
We should do it from there too.
We should. We will. Maybe we'll do a bonus live stream. We'll do 2 live streams next week.
We'll be able to get yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for everybody that's
maybe with a special guest on Saturday, but we won't tell you who that is.
Well, that could be like a super special guest.
That'd be really cool.
I'm not sure that you would. Could you imagine if we had that guest on? That would be like crazy. Now people are probably guessing who the guest might be. Yeah. Anyways, all right. Well, that's it for today. I hope everybody shares this with their friends. We are putting these up within a day or two on the Substack, and you can find it on YouTube under Food is Health Revolution. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places. They're out there. Everything's updated until today now, so everybody can find that. And we appreciate everybody joining. And that's another episode of the Food is Health Revolution with Ellen Brown and Carter Williams, and special guest, Dr. Adam Carewe.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.